Hello everybody, this is FM Steven Zierk. This is my third lecture in my series on Pawn Endgames. In the first two lectures, we covered some fundamental positions, king and pawn against king, connected passers, doubled pawns, and so on, and some basic fundamental positions. In this lecture, we'll be doing something slightly different. We'll be focusing on some basic tools you can use to help understand these pawn endgames better. And from there, with the tools you need and the basic positions to start off of, you can start to explore more complicated endgames, which we'll begin with next week. Okay, so the first tool I'm going to look at is something called corresponding squares. You might remember that I've mentioned these once or twice. And in this one, I'm going to explain exactly what they are and how you can use them in your own games. So another term you might remember is key squares. And these are basically the squares you really want your king to get to, the ones that will make it win or save the game. So for example, one that we've covered, these two pawns. White wins if his king can take this pawn because this pawn's more than halfway up. And so if the black king is, say, over here, then these would be the key squares. Because from there, white can get to the pawn. So what corresponding squares are is basically if one's king is on a certain square, then the corresponding square is the other square the king wants to be on. So for example, if here white's king is on f5, black's king wants to stop the white king from getting any farther up. So the corresponding square would be f7. And to g5, it would be g7, and so on. And this continues all over the board. And this frequently applies to almost any pawn endgame. Even the king and pawn against king. If you remember that these are the three key squares, for example, then e3 and e5 correspond, d3 and d5, and so on. And just to provide an example of how important these can be, there's one position that's fairly well known. It's a very strong example of corresponding squares. Okay, so basically, it's this position. So the idea is white wants to invade either through here or through here. And the black king naturally wants to stop him. And so at first, this might seem like a completely baffling position, and it would be at first, probably is now, but the corresponding squares help make it a lot easier. So basically what you do is, for example, if the white king is on h4, then black wants his king on g6 to stop the king from coming any further. And if the white king is on c4, then the black king wants to be on b6. And one thing that you have to note is that a6 does not correspond because you can count it'll take white 5 moves to get to h4, and black in 5 moves can only get to f6. So white can get to h5 and he wins the game.
We hope you enjoyed this video demo from Chess.com. Subscribe today to finish this video and get unlimited access to our full video library. Your membership also includes access to Chess Mentor, the most advanced interactive training tool available anywhere. You'll also get full access to the Opening Explorer, Tactics Trainer, and much, much more. So sign up today and get serious about improving your game.